Neck-throughs, guitars, they're like a guy that won't have a beer with you.
I want to hear what's pushing the notes.
Freddie King and B.B. King, Albert King, and let's not forget Burger King.
I don't want to blow my knuckle out.
Stainless steel is the work of the devil.
These go to 11.
From the East Amplification Tone Labs in Baltimore, Maryland, it's the Amps and Axes Show with your hosts, Jeff the Godfather of Low Wattage Amps Bober and Mick Marcelino.
Well, good day to you, Mr. Bober.
Good day to you, Mr. Marcelino. Good to see you again.
Yes,
good to see you.
I am in
back in studio.
Yes, we are back in where we can hear.
What?
Now, the listeners won't know this until the next couple of weeks. We're gonna, well, I don't know how we'll work it. I'm gonna make a show, and we'll come up with.
Okay, yeah, it'll be out in the next week or so. But
we literally were punched with sound.
Yes.
My ears felt like somebody just took 2 nails and 2 hammers and shoved them into my ears. It was crazy, but that was
only the bad band.
Yes, well, we did get
Actually,
2 very cool interviews.
We did. We were at this massive show in Baltimore called the Shindig.
Yes,
and we got to sit down with some cool people. And it was an awesome afternoon.
Yeah,
it really was. It was nice. Weather was beautiful.
All
the guys were great.
Can we tell them? Well, I guess we can tell them, right? Yeah.
No,
you don't want to tell them.
No, I don't want to tell them.
All right, we're not telling you.
We might tease it before the show, but
yeah,
you're gonna have to wait for it.
Exactly.
Yeah. But it was fun. A lot of fun.
And we want to thank everybody. Our Twitter. I don't know what's happening with Twitter, but we can't. We can't thank our listeners, the followers enough, man. We have exploded on Twitter now.
That's awesome.
Yes,
that's awesome.
From the last time when I said we exploded on Twitter,
right. We exploded again.
I feel
like such a twit.
I'm getting crazy follows every day.
Nice.
A lot of musicians, a lot of companies.
Nice.
And companies that deal with music. So if anybody's interested. And I don't mean just anybody, but if anybody that's in any of these companies or touring musicians that are out there that,
techs,
exactly,
touring techs,
shoot us a line and if we can get you on, we'll get you on. I mean, we've had everybody from somebody that's known somebody to, guys that are out there really doing it, trying to get their name out there.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. And we, we try to find interesting guests, but if you're, a listener, and
if you're interesting,
and if you're interesting, like Mick said, if you're a touring musician, you're a touring tech, if you're a producer, engineer, anybody like the likes of which we've had on before, don't be shy about contacting us. Give us a call or email or tweet the tweet or whatever you do with those things, and contact us somehow because we're easily found.
And on that note too, the more obscure job you have that people may not know behind the scene, definitely call us.
Yeah,
because we've covered a couple things. I was talking to our good buddy Dave Dowling.
Okay.
Dave was a guitar player for Jimmy's Chicken Shack.
Right.
And he played, or does he still play? No, he does not still play, but he played for...
with the Kelly Bell.
Kelly Bell Band.
Right.
And Dave works for Maryland Sound.
Yes.
And we were talking at the Shindig.
Right, yeah, he was there. Who wasn't there?
Yeah. And, I said, we went all the way to Nashville to talk to Soundcheck. And we got Maryland Sound in our backyard, and they're no slouches. They do a lot of shows.
That's true.
So I said, you know what, man? We may need to talk to you. So he was all about it, and what a great guy. Just an awesome guy.
And that's no tiny company.
No, it's not.
Those guys are hugely national.
Yeah, it says Maryland Sound. It's just, it is a giant warehouse full of equipment and employees. And
they do mega tours.
Yes, they do big stuff.
Mega tours.
Yeah. So it would be interesting to get their take on how they do the shows like we did with Soundcheck.
Absolutely.
I
would look forward to that. Yeah, that would be awesome. That would be awesome. Give us a little insight in the, inside the tractor trailers.
Yes. And Dave is
they pull up a few for every show.
Dave is the perfect spokesperson too.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is. Yeah, I like Dave. Good bud.
Dave is a great guy.
So there you go. Feel free to contact us.
Yes.
We're
and thank you, everybody.
Easy to get a hold of. Yeah. So, before we bring in our guest, I was reading something somewhere the other day. Could have been on the worldwide interweb or something, or actually maybe a print publication. I'm not sure.
Is it kind of weird how we lose where we read things now?
Yeah.
Isn't that weird?
It's just all one big input.
Because information is just coming from everywhere, and you just go, did somebody tell me this, or did I read it, or did I watch it?
Well, yeah, there's that too. Was it the written word? Was it video?
Yeah, it's really crazy.
Was it online? Was it in a paper periodical?
Yeah.
I mean, I still like to pick up a magazine. I still like to pick up a book. I enjoy reading books. I haven't gotten into the Kindle thing yet, although my significant other is deep into it. But I still like a book. I like to put a bookmark in a page and close it. Wow. There's just something satisfying about that for me.
Real quick, because I don't want to.
No, go ahead.
I don't want to kill your thing here. I will attest to this. I am a subscriber of Premier Guitar.
Mm-hmm. Online or print?
Well, both.
Okay.
Right. By the way, good guys, Premier Guitar.
Totally.
And I used to get the magazine, right? And, of course, when you get the magazine, you'll go from front cover to back cover. Mm-hmm. I got to read that. Or you read it, Not so much with online, man. I got to go back to the book. It's really weird. I don't enjoy it as much.
I'm right there with you.
Because everybody's like, well, you can read it on your phone. I'm like, you know what kind of tap dance you have to do to read this on your phone? Because
back, forth, up, down.
I don't want to look like I'm molesting my phone,
right?
But it's what you got to do. You got to squeeze it. You got to pinch it. You got to move it. You got to do. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. Mm-hmm. So I don't find myself going there too often. I believe the thing in your hand is so much more. It kind of makes you do it.
Yeah, for me. It's just so much more enjoyable.
Yeah,
I think I never got used to the technology, so I still like
It's
I still
really
like
weird.
old school, but I'm old school.
Yeah.
Speaking of the iPhone and everything, places like China are so looking forward to the 6 Plus.
Yeah.
The large version.
Yeah, the tablet phone.
The almost tablet in your hand phone.
Yeah.
They're all looking forward to that because all the symbols that are their alphabet
got to be very hard to read on a phone.
They're unbelievably difficult to read on a regular size phone. They've all been looking forward to the 6 Plus so they could actually read on the phone now.
I just
So but anyway, that's technology, neither here nor there. Let me get back to what I read somewhere.
Yes.
I was reading about this company called Born Guitars. BORN.
BORN.
Guitars.
Okay.
And their kind of claim to fame is they make guitars with sustainable materials.
Oh.
They're out of Colorado, and there was a picture, because I must have seen it, of a guitar that they had done. The body and the neck are cedar.
Mm-hmm.
From
cedar.
Cedar from trees that were in a forest fire up in the Northwest.
Okay.
They're actually harvesting those trees and building guitars, and the top is redwood. And it's from...
Oh, these are solid body electrics. I'm looking at them now.
Yes, yeah. The top is redwood, and it's made from what they call a sink log, a log that was like probably,
in the Mississippi. right? Or what?
I don't think. I think this is probably still Northwest, but it was
in a river.
Probably a logging operation that lost a log here and there.
Yeah.
It got buried under the water. This thing's 100 years old, and they pulled it up, and they
paid dear money for that, by the way.
Oh, I bet.
Because the government stepped in, stopped everybody from doing that.
Oh yeah.
Thank you, government.
Really, we're trying to make
one more time
useful, artful pieces.
So people making money, and they said, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, whoa! That water is owned by us."
Where'd you get that free log?
Yeah, yeah.
But anyway, I thought that was a unique idea. I mean, I don't know.
They're incredible looking guitars.
It's almost like, I don't know if sustainable is the right word, because these things. Sustainable is something that you take, but you can put back and regrow or rebirth or something like that.
That's how they have it listed.
Fish, trees, and they listed sustainable. It's more like recycled than sustainable in my mind. But I mean, however you want to.
They have a whole little write up here about what they do.
So you that quickly pulled it up on the interweb on your magic machine over there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Really nice looking guitars.
Yeah. No, I thought it was a great idea.
Cedar is kind of crazy for a neck.
Yeah, neck and body. Yeah.
You can dent cedar with a fingernail.
Maybe not after it's been burned.
And a moth won't get near it. Won't live in your case.
That's true. That's true. Maybe
you can put your cigars and your valuables in there.
Maybe it's what's the word when the animals are the dinosaurs are all preserved. What's the
fossiling?
Fossilized.
Yes.
Yeah, maybe
fossilized
it gets fossilized after it gets burned or something.
I don't know.
Like that.
My guitar weighs 200 pounds.
Yeah.
It's made out of stone.
Maybe they're like completely dry and solid.
Well, that's pretty guaranteed.
It just like squeezes all the sap out of the wood. And I don't know.
I mean, if it's a center, it would have to be close to the center because the outside of the tree takes a cooking, I mean, you got to have something. Yeah, you would have ash. Literally ash. Just
for a little bit.
Charcoal.
And I guess, there's got to be something there. But I just thought, I don't want to get too maybe we'll have them on. Who knows?
Yeah, it would be kind of neat to have those cats on.
Yeah, so maybe we'll talk about it. But I just thought it was very unique, and it's almost like a reuse and recycle as opposed to a sustainable or renewable kind of thing. But either way, I thought it was a unique idea. So
a lot of translucent colors, I can tell you that.
Oh yeah,
yeah. They look good.
So if you want to check them out, Born, I think it's BORN Guitars.
Yeah, it's not hard to spell.
Right.
It's not like the Bourne Supremacy.
Exactly. See, that's a different spelling. I'm letting people know it's not like the Bourne Supremacy.
It's just Born.
Born. Like dead, but born.
Born.
Right. Well, and speaking of born,
are we?
Our guest was born not too many years ago.
No, he's a young cat.
He's a young cat, and he has absorbed musical history very well.
Yes,
and is now bringing it full circle.
Yeah, we got to have more discussion about this. I'm kind of at this crossroads.
Oh, okay.
But well, not now.
Okay,
we're going to get him on, and then we'll talk.
All right. We'll talk some more.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So
this is what happens when you're exhausted, Jeff.
No, you're still talking. That's good. Once you fall asleep, I'll smack you upside the head.
The
we'll
philosophy to Mick when he's literally spent.
Well, we won't get into that either.
Yes.
So, but anyway, we're going to hopefully bring you somebody that some of you listeners may not know, and others might. He's tearing up the scene right now and getting bigger and better all the time. If
he stays around, he'll be known.
Oh no, he's quickly getting known.
Yes,
he is quickly getting
shaking
known.
shaking a lot of people.
He's already on Mr. Bonamassa's radar.
Oh really?
Oh yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Oh yeah. So he's getting there quite quickly. So
that's good.
Coming up in a minute, someone that you may or may not have heard of, Mr. JD Simo.
Hello, this is Kurt McKim with the Pat Travers Band, and you're listening to Amps and Axes.
As promised, on the line with us from beautiful Nashville, Tennessee, is Mr. JD Simo. And once again, how are you, JD?
I'm doing just wonderful, thanks.
Excellent.
How y'all
excellent.
doing?
Doing good.
Doing well, man. Doing well. So you're busy cutting tracks for, I guess, an upcoming release, and we'll talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's very good. I always try to start a little bit, try to get a little history on the people. Like, when did you decide to pick up a guitar because all the girls would love you?
I was 4, so it was a little before all of that. I saw Elvis on television, and there were 2 things. I saw Elvis on television, and I was very, very taken with him. It was the '68 comeback special.
I was just going to ask you. Everybody, most people that are, okay, let's put it this way, substantially older than you are, because you are very wise for your years. But
thank you.
Most people, it's like, oh, I saw the Beatles, I saw the Stones, on Ed Sullivan, or something. And for you, it was the '68 Elvis comeback. That's awesome. Continue.
Yeah, no, it was playing on television. I guess it was probably for like an anniversary of his death or his birthday or something, whatever it was. I was very young, obviously. So I saw that, and I was just, I was taken, with how great he was. And it wasn't even necessarily the guitar per se, even though I immediately fell in love with the guitar. It was just, he was just so darn cool. And that's something that, again, like you're saying, whether it was the Beatles or the Stones or whatever it was, so many people, heroes of mine, it turns out, fell in love with Elvis much the same way. It's, whatever it is, he was probably, with the exception of a couple of other people, undeniably one of the greatest icons that has ever lived. So, sure. I just was taken with him. And then shortly after that, I saw the movie The Blues Brothers, and I fell in love with Steve Cropper. I just thought, and it was very much the same thing, even though it was completely it couldn't be a more opposite, different context. I just thought he was, whatever it was, I just was like, wow, I love him. I want to be him, So it was those 2 things that made me want to, I guess, perform, which then led to playing the guitar shortly thereafter.
It's so funny because a lot of people look at that Blues Brothers movie and think it's just a comedy. We've had people think that it's
it was a slap in the face.
It's a slap in the face, or it's an insult. But I tell you what, man, those guys put together a stellar band.
Oh yeah.
That. It's unbelievable. Most people don't realize who those people were.
Oh no.
No, and I mean, there's so much reverence. I mean, I've yet to meet Dan Aykroyd, and obviously Belushi's no longer with us, but I'm friends with a lot of people that were involved in all that now, and the sincerity was at a very, very high premium with all of that, because Danny and John, and for that matter John Landis, the director of the movie, they had such a love for Black American music, and, that movie alone, I mean, you think to yourself, with the exception of Ray Charles, Aretha, there was a lot of people that were in that movie that were kind of at how shall I say, less than top dollar headliner prices at that particular time, John Lee Hooker's in that movie with all of Muddy Waters' band. Muddy Waters was supposed to be in that particular scene, but he had the flu.
Wow.
And of course, Shaka Khan's in there very briefly. James Brown, Aretha Franklin. They were all experiencing kind of an ebb in their careers at that particular time, and so, now looking at it as an adult, it's actually very fascinating to me that Belushi and Aykroyd were kind of at the zenith of their popularity and their kind of cool factor, and they actually exploited their own celebrity to bring attention and notoriety to these heroes of theirs, So I think it's a beautiful thing, a lot of heart and soul in that project.
I think so too. I think they did them all a great justice by picking them up and going, hey man, let's put you back in the limelight. Let's do something. Let's make a movie.
Here's a funny thing is I was a big fan, so I had the CD. And a friend of mine said, "Hey, I got a cassette tape from a radio interview that those two did prior to the movie coming out." So he brought in this old crusty cassette tape and played it. I listened to it. It was like an hour-long interview. And basically, Belushi was like, he saw this scene kind of dying.
Yeah.
And he said, we got to do something. And Aykroyd was like, what do you think we should do?
Right,
you
we're
know?
comedians. What are we going to do?
And, but they were both fans of that music. So,
very much.
So then they sat down with Landis, and away it went. But he was, I mean, the whole movie was him just giving praise to these guys.
Absolutely.
I mean, I'm sorry, not the movie, but the interview. He was just giving praise to these guys.
Well, I think the movie was too.
Yes, but you know, he was actually just coming out and saying we wanted to have even more guys, but we couldn't get them, and we couldn't fit it all into the because that movie was long.
Yeah, it's a very long movie, and I know that they cut an awful lot out of it to even make it as long of a movie as it is. But no, I mean, you know, so for me, I grew up in Chicago, so there's also the side. I grew up on the north side, so for me, there was also that thing where, you know, the Blues Brothers is very much also kind of a love letter to my hometown in that it prominently features Chicago as almost another character in it. So, you know, I very much understood that, and even at that young age, it was like, oh, that's Daly Plaza, and oh, that's Rush Street, and
nice,
you know, so that, you know, my father used to take me to Maxwell Street, you know, usually once a month we'd go to the flea market on Maxwell Street and eat a Polish sausage, you know. So that scene where they're walking around Maxwell Street, which no longer exists, by the way, Maxwell Street is now a football field.
Wow.
University of Illinois kind of engulfed that entire neighborhood and turned it into athletic fields and buildings and so on and so forth. So
there's that college money again.
Yeah, exactly. So
they're starving.
So anyway, so it's very much a love letter to my hometown as well. So anyway, getting back to the initial questions, you know, it was those two very powerful things that I saw, you know, at 3-4 years old that's
amazing.
That very much kind of made me aware of it and made me obsessed with it. You know,
see, that's something you never know when something's going to change someone's life, especially young. You never know what somebody's going to see, and it's just going to register. It's going to click. It's going to leave an indelible mark in their brain. You never know where or when that's going to happen.
Yeah,
somebody.
I would say that, and when you talk to most of these guys, it's always usually a big brother that turned them on to like, hey, my brother had these albums from the Beatles, you know, or the Rolling Stones, and then it went from there. And but to hear this, that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
it was awesome. A movie and Elvis,
right?
You know, Elvis is one of those guys that it's like he wasn't known for his guitar playing.
Well, no, I mean, he had, you know,
well, he had the thing. He had the
he had one of the greatest rock and roll guitar players of all time. Two, really. I mean, if you count James Burton later on, but I mean, Scotty Moore.
Yeah,
you know, I mean, if you go back, you know. If you go back into the 50s, you know, I mean, there weren't, outside of blues music, you know, the guitar really became prominent in rock and roll a little later. I mean, because if you think about it, other than Elvis, you know, you think about Little Richard or Fats Domino, you know, a lot of Jerry Lee Lewis, you know, it's piano and saxophone were featured lead instruments a lot.
Sure.
You know, so you got Scotty Moore, you got Chuck Berry, you know, and you got in his own way Buddy Holly that kind of formed the nucleus of rock and roll guitar playing early on, you know. But you know, it's funny to me, you know, and that it because it really does kind of take almost, you know, I mean, to the British invasion, really, to where lead guitar really kind of becomes more prominent. In rock and roll, that is, you know, in blues, it's prominent, you know, virtually from the very beginning.
Right.
But in rock and roll, not so much. So, I mean, with Scotty Moore, you know, I mean, he was a hellacious guitarist and raunchy as hell. And, you know, I quickly fell in love with his playing. And then, of course, later on, you know, James Burton as
Right.
well,
Mm-hmm.
you know, in a very different way.
And if you read Keith Richards' book, he said that the song "I'm Left, You're Right, and She's Gone" had one of the hardest licks that he could
all
never
of that
play.
Stuff
Really?
is so,
Yeah.
Well, the first solo I ever learned to play was Heartbreak Hotel, and if I had my guitar next to me, I'd play it right now because everybody plays it wrong because the last note of the solo, you know, he's bending an E flat into an E, but not quite getting it. So it's something that Keith Richards actually mimics quite a bit. There's a lick in Monkey Man where he does it, and it's, you know, the reason why Scotty Moore played it that way is because he was playing either an L5 or a Super 400 with telephone wires,
Exactly.
and strings, and he couldn't bend. You know?
Right.
So, but I mean, he was a funky player, man. You know.
Yeah,
And
I mean,
I love his playing.
with-
You know,
with-
I mean, the guitar solo to Hound Dog Man, you know, or Jailhouse
Yeah,
Rock. I mean,
yeah.
that stuff. That's he wrote the book. You know,
Yeah.
him and Chuck Berry.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Two of them. They're peas in a pod, and it's just so raw and it's so simplistic.
Mm-hmm.
But it's so right for what it is. It's right in the pocket. It's right. That's. I mean, when I think of something, and you know, this guy is nowhere near as actually groundbreaking as those guys were. But when I think of like a lick that just gets put into the right place for the right amount of time and come out. Back in the 80s, we used to call Elliot Easton Slick Licks Elliot.
Well, yeah.
Because he was, you know, he
was
would
the
go
guy.
in, he would make the statement, and he would come right back out.
He
And
was
it
like
just-
a
it
he was like a
perfect.
soldier in Vietnam. You know, he got in, he got out. That's all he did.
Well, there's a lot of. That's very funny. There's a lot of guys in that. I mean, Mike Campbell's in that. George
Oh, I
Harrison
love
is in
Mike.
that.
Yeah.
You know,
George Harrison, yeah.
There's a long line of great players that because it's two different muscles. You know, there are the great improvisers, and then there are the great song guys. You know, and they're not they don't necessarily commingle necessarily.
Right. Well, I mean, you know, a lot of guys will tell you, you know, a solo like that, if it's going to be good, it should be memorable. If it's going to be memorable, it should be something you can hum. You know, it's like like the melody of a song.
Well,
You can hum
what is
the
it?
solo.
What do they say? The solo is supposed to be a mini song.
Right.
You know, it's like a little mini song inside the song.
Yeah, and that's something
Yeah,
that
yeah.
I don't really think you can. I don't really think you can learn to do that. I think you either have that in you to do or not. I think there's a lot of things that one can improve upon over time, but that's something that's very, I think, unique to the individual. You know.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I don't know about it has to be in you. I personally think that it evolves over time. If you're conscious enough of it and you realize that's your goal or that's you want that to be your goal, I think you start thinking that way. Like, okay, I can play scales all day long and, you know, I can make them faster and faster, but that doesn't say anything.
Well, that's very true, and I would agree with that. I'm just saying that
It just sounds like scales.
I'm saying that, you know, well, you know, there's the really great quote. Miles Davis was talking to Les Paul one time, and Miles was bemoaning to Les that he wished he could have a hit record, and Les, in his infinite wisdom, laughed and he said, "Miles, why don't you just do a remake of Blueberry Hill, or Mockingbird Hill, I'm sorry." To which Miles laughed and he said, "I wouldn't be caught dead playing that," you know. And Les said, "Well, then that's why you're starving," you know. So anyway, my point being is that, you know, you kind of, you know, there are improvisers and then there are song guys, you know, and I'm saying that it doesn't necessarily always commingle. You know, you kind of, you know, whatever your personality is, it is, you know, and there's no right or wrong way. You know, I think that we're always in the pursuit of trying to improve ourselves as human beings, hopefully first and foremost, because that will inevitably improve every other aspect of our life.
Absolutely.
But in our quest as musicians, as creative people, the refining process, you know, you said it a few minutes ago, the refining process of it never ends.
I hope not.
Yeah, and that's I mean that's in a lot of ways the most enjoyable portion of it, because no matter how long you've done it and no matter how much you've done, the moment of discovery of either creating something, writing something, learning to do something you couldn't do before, that's an endorphin buzz. That's that's high. That is extremely addictive, and that's why people are so obsessed with it, because once you experience that once, it's like a drug. You have to experience it again and again and again and again.
Yeah, and if we didn't progress, we'd all sound like Limp Bizkit.
Stop it.
And that right there, you just got to pull the plug and walk away.
Oh Lord, man! All right. So now you're into these guitar players. What did you first start playing it on?
What, you mean the instrument?
Yeah. What was your first?
I had a little cheap nylon string classical acoustic guitar for several years. That was fairly hard to play because the neck was way messed up, and so the strings were really high off the fret. It could have been worse. Could have been a steel string. But I had that, and then after a couple of years, I ended up getting a little tiny, like one pickup travel electric guitar, and those were the two things that I learned on for the first several years, and my first quality guitar, I guess you could say, is I saved up for a Strat when I was like a Mexican Strat that I don't remember when I got it. I was probably 8 or 9. I'd saved up money for it, and I ordered it from, I don't remember where, but I remember ordering it because I remember knowing that it would arrive a certain day, and that day in school being the longest day in the history of school for any human being. So that was my first quality, I guess you would call it quality instrument.
Yeah. Oh, sure.
And then from there, it's been endless ever since.
Yeah, yet another addiction.
Yes.
Yeah, and one that I didn't really show many attributes of in an extreme fashion until just a few years ago when I got exposed to the vintage world of things, and now I am completely ruined for life. So.
I saw the rig rundown.
Oh God! Well, there's additions from that as well.
I just want to know how you can hear at the end of a night.
How I can hear at the end of the night? I don't know. I can hear. I can hear fine.
I mean, are you wearing plugs or in-ears? What do you?
No, I mean I don't like to because it affects my ability to play dynamically. I feel I wear them sometimes. It's not all the time. It's really depending upon where we're playing. It obviously, in some situations, is louder than others. But the good thing about Marshalls through old 412 cabs is they're incredibly directional. So if you point those off axis, or you point them towards the wall, or you point them sideways, or something like that, it's the comment we always get from people when they come see us is it's not as loud as I thought it would be.
Nice.
Well, you hear it's like, well, we just dime the amp,
Well, yeah.
Well, we'll get into the settings. But
I know, but I go, how do you hear at the end? I've heard those amps; they're very loud.
They are.
I mean, again, it's in context. I mean, it's sure. I'm not louder than the drummer, really.
Yeah.
I think that's a very important fact.
Yes.
And and I don't use any effects. So, one of the things that, and I get into this kind of talk all the time with people is, frequencies have more effect on your ears, on your hearing, than
sheer volume.
Well, than sound pressure necessarily. Because there are certain frequencies that cause more, they're more fatiguing than others, and so consequently I just avoid, I avoid those frequencies, and with me, I'm going for more mid-range than I am going for high fidelity, and I'm constantly working my tone knob and my volume control and how hard or soft I'm picking with my right hand, and consequently, one of the other things is I'm rarely on my guitar. I'm rarely above like 7 or so on the guitar volume, because when you open an amp up all the way, regardless of if it's a 100-watt amp or if it's a 10-watt amp, on vintage guitars, there's a especially old Gibsons, there seems to be a sweet spot on those old pots right around there where I tend to like harmonically what I'm hearing the best. And so I rarely go above that because I don't really like I don't like compression, and I don't really like mushiness. I like things to be, big and bold, if you will. So anyway, I guess what I'm saying is, I try and play with an awful lot of dynamics, and there's lots of different ways, given whatever type of venue we're in, that I can aim stuff certain ways. I can use certain cables to cut even more offending frequencies out. I can knock the ohmage down on the back to take about 1.5 dB or so off. There's different things, but I mean, my years of when I was playing in a club band here in Nashville, and I was playing through a deluxe reverb every night up on a chair, I had more like fatiguing nights after I was done playing in that gig than I've ever had. And
really,
in Simo, yeah, because it was all frequencies that live up in that range that I'm talking about. And actually, it's funny. There's a jam. A friend of mine. There's a jam that I had impromptu here at my house with my buddy Greg Martin, who's in the Kentucky Headhunters, and I'm actually playing through my deluxe reverb turned up all the way, and he's playing through my 100-watt Marshall, and you can hear us both fine. Again, I think a lot of it is just about relying upon dynamics.
Oh, for sure, and those are two Fenders and Marshalls are two very different animals, especially when it comes to the mid-range.
Yeah.
A Fender is, with regard to a Marshall, it has a relatively scooped mid content.
It does,
yeah.
And it's got a lot of low end, and when you play through those old cabinets, that's another thing, those old cabinets, no two 412s that I've played through from those days sound the same. And some are louder than others, believe it or not. Some of them actually, you can listen to them side by side, and that one, it almost drastically so. In that, like, oh, that one seems like it's 2 dB louder than this one. So I've got my main cab that I use all the time is kind of in between. I don't know, man. I mean, I've never had a problem. I've never had a problem, and I'm I don't have any. But I'm sure what I always tell people though is, I'm a young man, and the sound that, whether I'm playing my 62 335 or my 60 burst straight into my main amp, which is that 67 purple 100-watt, that it makes the sound that I've always dreamed of having. So I'm having fun at the moment with it, and I'm sure there will probably come a time later on that I might change, and I might go to something less wattage further down the road. I don't know, but at the moment it's just so inspiring to play through. It's the sound of,
I mean, those are the real rigs. I mean, that's where those signature tones back in the day came from. And if you have the luxury of being able to do that, Jesus, why wouldn't you?
Well, exactly. That's what I'm saying. On a daily basis. I mean, I just go
right.
It's just incredible to me that the good fortune that I've had, that I have access to those instruments, and and am able to play them, and it's just, I mean, it's a gas.
I would rub that thing every day.
Oh, totally. Twice. I'd rub it twice a day.
I mean, it never ends, man. It never ends.
Yeah. But I mean, really, a 335, a 67 Marshall, and a couple of 4x12s.
Well, I don't know what else you need.
Who you going to sound like?
Some electricity and some strings? I don't know.
My God. I mean, that's cream in a box.
Yes, it is.
Right there. That is just incredible. Yeah. And to get to do it. I mean, I really wish I had the opportunity to do that anywhere around. I mean, hell, I can
come and see it. Come and see us play, and you can play through it and have some fun.
I tell you, as soon as you reach the East Coast, we're gonna do that, man. We'll be there.
Well, we will be. We've got we're kind of right in the middle. Today's a day off. We're actually back in Nashville, but we're in the middle of a bunch of touring that's going to take us through the end of the year, and then we pick up again right away in January. We're actually on the opposite end. We're going to be going out west, but no, we'll be up your way before long.
Cool.
Good.
Yeah, we'll have to check.
Oh, and don't get me wrong. It's not that I don't have that gear to play through.
No, he actually has one.
There you go.
I just can't play it anywhere.
You can come up to my house.
I'm relegated to playing 18-watt amps. Hell, we just did an outdoor gig on a huge stage. And I put my 18 on top of one of my 4x bottoms, which is the first time I'd ever done that in an outside situation. And I went, Jesus, this 18-watt amp is like still really loud.
Well, it's crazy. It's like I constantly tell you. I don't know. Your wattage doesn't add up to everybody else's. So
yeah, I know.
It's
whatever.
Yeah. His 18-watt amp. I don't know if you've had the chance to ever hear any of his stuff, JD.
I haven't, but I've played through lots and lots of old, original ones and Watkins Dominators and all that kind of stuff. So
yeah, his East stuff is it's a kick in the pants.
Yeah, I mean, what I do is it's nothing like that at all. But again, even for me, it's all about the mid range.
Yeah,
it's a guitar is a mid range instrument.
Well, that's exactly right. And I mean, all my years of playing on records here prior to this band forming, it really informed me in a very practical sense about understanding. You learn about frequencies really quick when you're under headphones a lot, because one of the things that will determine whether or not somebody calls you again is if you're giving them what they need, both in what you play and in how it sounds. So yeah, you learn really quick that just because an amplifier sounds amazing by itself within the context of playing with other musicians, it's a mid-range instrument. And especially if you're going to be competing with another guitar player or an organ player or a fiddle player or or other instrumentalists that are going to be essentially kind of weaving around your same frequencies, it becomes even more important. So all that. So yeah, it's good, healthy mid-range is where it's at.
Absolutely. And you touched on the studio aspect, which I was going to get into. You before you ever put Simo together, you were doing a lot of studio work. Let's hear a little bit about that.
Yeah, man.
Oh well, yeah. I mean, it dominated my life once I moved here to Nashville. Just prior to turning 21, I was hard up on. I was hard. I was unemployed, and I wasn't doing very well, and I was having a rough time. And it's a very long story, but I ended up finding my way into this club band here called the Don Kelly Band that a lot of amazing A-team session guitarists preceded me in succession. And so once I got in that band, session work started relatively quickly. Just within a matter of a couple of months of being in that band, I started getting called. And so, wow. At the heyday of that, there was a good 3-4 years where, I'd work in the studio, in a myriad of studios. I mean, there's thousands of studios here in Nashville.
Oh, yeah.
And I frequented some more than others, but on a typical week, I'd work 3, 4, 5 days a week, doing a 10 o'clock and a 2 o'clock session in the afternoon, and then I'd go and play in the club band at night, and that was my life for 3 or 4 years. And And so I learned a lot. I learned, and both experiences taught me different things. Because obviously playing in a club band like that every night, that boasted the pedigree of musicians that preceded me was pressure like I'd not experienced before.
Wow.
As far as being held to a certain accountability on my instrument, and especially, mind you, in a genre of music that I had no prior experience in.
Wow.
Having to play bluegrass and country music. That was a really great learning experience, and it really got my chops in shape, and it gave me, I did 1,300 gigs with that band,
Wow.
So that alone, really helped refine certain things about my playing. And then all the session stuff, like I'm saying, it taught me about, I don't know, man, it's even outside of the musical realm, it taught me how to deal with people who are jerks and people that have a lot of entitlements, who need to justify their existence, how to, I could go on and on.
Yeah, we know.
But as far as just doing the sessions, it's incredible because, now it's, probably the biggest mistake that people make when they record, when they haven't done a lot of recording, is they tense up. They're afraid of the process rather than recognizing that recording is nothing more than documenting whatever happens in that moment, and moments change from moment to moment.
Yeah.
And so as long as you stay focused and you just do your thing, it's going to be okay. And it took me, months and months and months and months of working, consistently, to relax, and to truly, get to the other side of that. But that's the biggest thing,
I can't imagine that anyone goes into that situation not being a little scared and apprehensive at first. You're human. I think everybody would go into it going, whoa, I really have to be absolutely perfect right from the get-go, and I can't, and can't loosen up,
No, and it's a lot of pressure because, like I said, it's like, the first time a big producer calls you, or, say like one of the song pluggers from Warner Brothers or Universal, from one of the, I did a whole lot of the work that I ended up doing consistently, like most guys here in Nashville, is doing songwriter demos for the publishing companies, because they cut a lot more than labels cut artists, especially nowadays. So, you're being judged every second. But what I'm saying is you just have to let go of it, because all that does is ruin it. And the quicker that you come to peace with that and are able to kind of neutralize that within you, then it becomes a lot easier. It's just getting to that point where you can just flick that switch off, where it's no big deal. You're just doing your thing.
It's your job and it's what you do, and you just
it's having confidence that
I was just going to say, you have to convince yourself that you're good at this. That's why you're here.
Well, yeah, you have to. And that's key in anything.
True.
Because you will always buckle under pressure unless you learn to control it by knowing that you wouldn't be put in the position that you're put in unless you could handle it.
Right.
Yeah.
And but that it was. I wouldn't want to go through the experience again. It was a hell of an experience.
But I'm sure you're very thankful that you did go through it.
No, because as I sit here right now, in the middle of cutting some tracks with the guys, I'm grateful for the understanding that I gained, because you learn, one of the greatest things in context of the music that we play now in our group, I learned more about what I didn't want things to sound like, or what I didn't want things to be recorded like, or tones or approaches or something. the whole time I was doing all that, I was kind of mentally making my checklist of, if I was,
what not to do.
Yeah, what because again, I mean, it's all relative to what you're working on, but yes, it's given me a great amount of confidence with our group, to that I at least know what I want.
Right. Well, and you had the experience recording for others in the studio that now transfers over into being able to record yourself and your guys and know how to do it and what you want, and having made the mistakes. I mean, making mistakes. Mistakes are the best teacher in the world.
It's my whole life.
It's everyone.
Right. If you don't make mistakes, you're not living and you're not learning.
I wouldn't think it was a normal day.
Well, there you go.
Oh no one makes mistakes.
No.
Now, are you the same way with how you record with your gear? Do you prefer tape, or do you're okay with Pro Tools and the normal?
I absolutely prefer tape. However, what I think, and it's funny because when the Sound City documentary came out and all of my friends went to see it, everybody kind of left that movie, converted, like, it has to be on tape, and that's a beautiful thing. It's a great thing. But I think that, first of all, it's very expensive to work on tape.
Yeah.
And there's lots of different, and some are better than others. And
I'm sorry, we lost you for 1 second there. There's lots of different
tape. There's lots of different types of tape.
Oh, okay.
Different brands, if you will, using new old stock, using some of the newer stuff. So anyway, my point being, the point I'm trying to get at is, if you can afford to do it and you have access to people that can do it, because it's a engineering side, then more power to you. Yeah. I absolutely love it and will always love it. But as far as using Pro Tools, where I think, in my humble opinion, where people go wrong with Pro Tools is they use it as a way to manipulate stuff that isn't there. Whereas if they just use Pro Tools like a computerized tape machine,
sure,
you can arrive at the same place as you would with tape. It's all reliant on the process, because if you're recording with the mindset that you're just going to replace this, or you're not making a sonic decision about, on this track I want the drums to be more ambient, but I'll take care of it in the mix, instead of moving microphones around, or maybe moving to a different part of a studio, or if you're working in your house, maybe moving the drums into a more ambient space. Like, you take the time to do it where sonically what you're capturing is what you want it to essentially kind of sound like in the end. Because that's when you're working on tape, you're forced to do that because you can't change anything. You have to make decisions right from the get-go of how you want things to be.
Yeah.
Well, I think it takes more thought, more determination, when you're on tape, because you can't keep wasting tape. But and I think it also, and hopefully not in an uncomfortable way, but I think it forces a better performance.
Think about it. You have to sing the chorus 4 times.
Well, exactly, and that's what I'm saying. Like, you can,
in Pro Tools, just copy and paste, right?
Well, you can, but you see, but that's what I'm saying is that if you're working, because I work with Pro Tools all the time, and if you treat it
like tape,
as if it's just your tape machine that happens to be in a little gray box, exactly. You can arrive at the same place. But you have to have the due diligence to truly do that. But with me, I don't even think about it anymore, because that's just how I prefer to work, and that's how I work. So
well, God bless you.
So you don't have a fix it in the mix mentality.
So, no, not at all. Right. Because actually, to be honest with you, if you're a tweaker, or if you're as fascinated with sonics and sound as I am, it's more fun to experiment. It's more fun to go, well, what are the drums going to sound like in here? What would it sound like if I just mic'd it from this position and compressed it this way? It's more fascinating to me to do that than to sit looking at a grid and dicking with with plugins.
Yeah.
You know?
Well,
It's
you know,
more-
I love that mindset.
You know what's funny is, and this is probably going to like shock you a little bit. Steve Vai. Now, you think of Steve Vai, right? This is a guy that's probably deep into using all the processes and everything because of his sound. That guy does not use any plugins for compression or anything like that. He actually has had guys go and rebuild like old compressors that he only read about, got the schematics for, and actually hired a guy to go find the parts and build the thing.
Well, I mean, there are a lot of those out there right now. There's a lot of really
being remade and
absolutely, reissued or redesigned or whatever. But I mean, you see them more and more all the time.
But that's impressive.
They're
to do
a little.
that,
They're a little.
Pricey?
They're not. Yeah, they're not very cost effective. But you know.
Well, yeah, no, they're you know, it's just like getting into vintage amps and guitars or instruments or drums or whatever. You know, it's the rabbit hole of vintage vintage audio, recording equipment. Oh Lord, have mercy.
Do I eat?
Yeah, ever?
Right. You know, I love peanut butter and tuna fish. We're good.
Yeah, exactly.
Top ramen never did a man wrong.
That's right.
No, never did. But but like I said, I think that a lot of it is. I think it's all reliant upon the process. You know, I think that
that's very cool.
What you use to get it in the end is not as important. I think that because you can work the same way in the digital realm. It's just that people don't have enough discipline, I think, to
it's a cheating tool.
Well, yeah, because it's easier,
right? No, I
mean, and I gotta say, like today we've done loads and loads of takes of different songs, and I've marked which ones are going to be the masters. Now when I go in to kind of start rough mixing them. I mean, it's a hell of a lot easier to be able to edit in Pro Tools, obviously.
Sure.
So I mean, I'm not a fan of cutting tape and so on and so forth. So it's like when it comes to that, it's a very great tool. But I mean, that's it's just like anything. It's when the tool dictates how you do it, then you're in trouble. But if you just use the tool as a tool, then you're okay, I think.
There you go. I mean, that's a great way to look at it.
Yes.
The tool dictates the way you do it. That's not the right way to do it.
And we had this conversation outside of here, but it's very refreshing to see a young man such as JD having this approach, because we have kind of built this show to kind of tell people, you don't have to, kind of let just do it, just bring what's in you out, and don't sit behind something. We've
it can be a little more organic than sterile.
Noise is okay,
and technology laden, ridden, whatever you want to call it.
Well, I mean, it becomes a distraction. And
right.
I mean, I with as obsessive as I am about sonics and about sounds and all that, there's a very distinct kind of line in my consciousness where I get to a certain point and then I shut it off because I have to, because in the end what I love doing more than anything is making music, is improvising, is making music, is writing, is
Sure.
And so all of this other stuff, it, for me at least, it affects my ability to enjoy it and to have a joyful experience, Cool. So again, it's compartmentalizing these kind of things within your consciousness, which again, in our journeys as human beings in trying to improve ourselves, they're just as relative to other aspects of our life as in a musical sense as we're speaking. So it's all connected.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's emotional. It's
and that's what should be in there.
No,
it should have a heartbeat. We've talked about that.
Well, yeah, okay, yeah, exactly. There you go. It should be all natural and connected to life, and not just something that's done artificially or just feels artificial. You know, if you get it right, it feels good, whether it's in the studio or whether it's on the stage.
Exactly.
You know? Go ahead.
I was going to say, or playing bluegrass through a Marshall stack.
You know, if it works, it works. You know, I mean,
I'm just kidding, but
that's fine, man. You know, hey, who's to say you can't do that? That could be innovative. You know?
I mean, that's essentially what David Grissom was doing in the '80s with Joe Ely. You know, I mean, he was.
Now, were you using the only reason I said that is because when you said you were playing with a bluegrass band, all I could think of is your '67 Marshall.
Yeah, no. I was in those days. I was playing. I had a couple of. I still have them, but I have a couple of different Telecasters, and I plugged straight into an old '66 Blackface Deluxe Reverb, and basically had it turned up all the way, and I would ride my volume control to go from clean to dirty, you know, whatever I needed, you know, and that was my main rig for years in that band.
Wow.
So,
and you're obviously doing studio stuff right now. Home studio or studio in Nashville somewhere? And
no. Well, today we're just at my house.
Okay.
We've cut tons and tons of stuff down here. Whether or not what we're cutting today will end up actually being on the next record or not, I really can't say, because we are planning to cut in some other places coming up here in the very near future. But there's some new tunes that were written here recently, and in this little break in touring, I really wanted to, if at anything else, at least have a good quality demo of them done. So, but since this band formed, that's all we've done. We've recorded virtually every time we've been together since we formed 3 years ago. So, I have thousands and thousands of hours of jams and
cool.
songs. Our graveyard of potential songs is pretty massive. But even now on the road, in preparation for all the dates that we just did and that we're kind of in the middle of doing, we worked up 60 some odd songs, original songs, that is, for us to be able to choose from on any given night. So
wow,
that's cool.
A hell of a repertoire.
You're throwing curveballs at people.
Well, it's
all
a big
over
part of what we do, and the other thing is it's really the live environment is so invaluable for testing whether or not something is as good as you think it is. You learn really, really quick.
Oh yeah, you do.
And also you learn, like from my perspective, kind of trying to look at it as objectively as possible. It's also very good because you can tell if it's just certain aspects of the song that need to be tweaked, if it's an arrangement thing, if it's a tonality thing. It's really good. So it's the last several weeks has been wonderful because we've been able to, and that's actually part of what we're doing today, because there were two things that we've been playing that I wanted to try in a slightly different sonic context. So we're going to try that today, and then there was a new song that I wrote last week that I wanted to get down. So it's an omnipresent thing with us. It's not what is normal for our band is if we're not playing live, we're jamming, writing, and recording.
Nice.
That is too cool.
Now, when you go to lay down the real tracks, same rig as live, or do you find that you need to do things differently in the studio?
With Simo, I definitely, there is some variance. It depends on the track, but I generally rely on the same stuff that I use live, at least as a starting point.
Nice.
And I kind of go from there, because most of the time it works. Because when we record. And it's kind of tough because the record that is available for people to purchase, we made that record when we'd essentially only been a band for a few months, so quite a bit of time has passed since then. so our sound, if we have one, has become a lot more defined since then. And so recording wise, we're not an overdub crazy band. It's if we have a sound at all, it's the sound of the three of us playing at the same time in a room. And if there's going to be an overdub, it's going to be usually percussion based or background vocal based, because sonically we've kind of got under control where each of us need to sit. And so if you pan Justin on bass hard left and you pan me hard right, and then you've got the drums, whether in a mono capacity or a stereo capacity, we're filling that sonic space. It doesn't really, there's not really a need for me to do like a bunch of guitar overdubs or stuff like that, So,
cool.
So therefore, using the live stuff is usually a good place to start.
That's the old Van Halen method.
I was going to say, hard left, hard right. You got the first Van Halen album.
Yeah, man.
Well,
And
yeah, and I mean,
Ted Templeman,
and you've got Cream records, you've got certain Hendrix records that weren't, once they switched to stereo. You've got Zeppelin records that are mixed that way. You've got, that's a very when the bass is distorted and has a lot of harmonic complexity, you can kind of get away with it, because otherwise it can sound kind of naked and thin.
Oh, it does.
That's one thing I really do enjoy is a bass that's got some hair behind it.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah,
me too. Because even Beatle records, man. I remember I did a record one time. I played on a record with Matt Chamberlain, the great drummer, and he gave me a zip drive of all of the Beatles Pro Tools files to listen to.
Wow.
And even on the Beatle records, man, Paul's bass tone, not on everything, mind you, but there was several of them. While My Guitar Gently Weeps comes straight out in my mind. That thing is heavily distorted and has tremolo on it.
Yeah, who told us about Joe Mack?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Told us, and I had never realized that before. But he said that the Beatles stuff had tremolo on it, and I went, really?
Yes, some do.
Yeah.
Well, another great example of that is "Heartbreaker" by Led Zeppelin. John Paul Jones's bass is extremely overdriven and has tremolo on it.
Wow.
Yeah. And a lot of guitar players think that there's like Jimmy's playing all those fill-in parts live. He did do it, but on the album, that's all John Paul Jones. That really heavy distorted
and that's the mark
bass
of a
on
great
it.
band.
Yeah.
When everybody has something very significant to contribute.
Oh,
absolutely.
Yeah.
So right. Well,
this is crazy, man.
Yeah,
I love
it. And it's so cool that what you mentioned that you guys are in the same room playing together.
Yeah, I love that stuff.
That's how often does that happen anymore?
I'm telling you, that should be a law.
Well, it really, it should be, I think, because what it does is it forces you, again, like I was saying earlier, talking about sonics, talking about EQ frequencies, you
got to be creative, man.
Well, if you figure out how to tune the drums correctly for that particular band, and you EQ your bass rig and you EQ your guitar rig so that you're not stepping on each other, and you make a big glob of sound, and you're in a room that sounds decent, it's really not that hard. That's the hardest thing. Every great engineer that you'll ever talk to, whether you're looking at interviews of Ken Scott or Eddie Kramer or Andy Johns or Glenn Johns or Jeff Emmerich, they will all say that it's not hard when it sounds good in the room, because then it's about transferring that onto tape or onto hard drive. In our case, it's harder when it doesn't sound right in the room and you're trying to manipulate it after the fact. You know? So
that whole in the mix
it
thing
becomes more artificial and removed from reality the more you try to do that.
And again, it's like you can look at every record that I love, basically up until, the early 90s, when everything started changing, every record, no matter what genre, because I'm a compulsive listener, and I love music, and I listen to all types of music, and they are across the board. They were all made that way. They were all made that way. Whether you're talking about A Love Supreme, or whether you're talking about Sgt. Pepper, or whether you're talking about Nirvana's Nevermind, or whether you're talking about Elvis Costello's first couple of records, or whether you're talking about Led Zeppelin records, they or Elvis or Howlin' Wolf, they were all in the room together, self-mixing themselves, and capturing a moment.
Right.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, that's awesome, man.
Problem is it's going away, and
but we have people like JD.
We have people like JD to keep ringing that bell, man.
That's it.
Well, it's fun. It's fun. I enjoy it. It's one of the things that makes it very enjoyable. I love both sides.
I think if more people were able to do it or allowed to do it, and more engineers and producers would allow it to happen, I think people would have a hell of a lot more fun in the studio.
And I think also is that, they kind of get OCD to where they're like, oh, I heard you got to make it, we got to go back and correct that, and it's like, no, just leave it in, man.
Yeah.
I mean, good God, there's mistakes all over the place on some of the older stuff. Take Van Halen. We were talking about Van Halen. There's tons of mistakes in there.
No.
But they just left it. And one of it was because Eddie wanted to drink. And he was like, man, if we got to do this again, it's really going to be a problem.
My beer's going to get warm. But
no, but I mean, it is. It's really, it's not that difficult. And like I said, it's actually easier today than it ever has been, because you can go get a $300 interface
and a laptop and go record.
Yeah, and you can set up in your house. I mean, my house. I mean, my girlfriend, who is actually my fiance, we've been together a very long time. I mean, there isn't an inch of this house that I haven't gone, oh man, I'd love to hear drums here, or because it's fun. I mean, it's fun to do that, and and the thing is that not everything works.
Sure.
What is this going to sound like if I put a microphone in the sink?
Exactly. I mean,
totally.
Try it. You never know until you try it, and it's the same. It's the same level of craziness that I have with, oh well, let me try. I have a dozen different preamp tubes for V1 of my Marshall. Let me go through them and find the one that I think is the best and best suited. It's the same. It's the same thing. And I'm also, I always equate, because I'm crazy and I know it, and I say it all the time. But I always equate it to hot rod culture, because I love hot rods as well, and it's the same thing.
See, now he's after my own heart.
There you go.
Well, I mean, because it is. It's like the same, the same kind of analytical craziness that would cause someone to like do the things that I do to a Marshall would do the same to get the optimum performance out of their rod.
Sure.
In dicking with their carburetor to get it to be exactly right. You know what I mean?
And then doing it again.
It's the same thing, and it's fun.
Because a carburetor's like a tube; it's always changing.
Exactly.
Every time the weather changes, you got to go out and change the carburetor. You got to mess with the carburetor.
But it's good fun. It's good fun.
Plus, it makes you better at what you do.
It does, and it's rewarding, because then, just like if you play through that amplifier and it sounds better than it did, and it's more inspiring to you, or you play that track that you just worked on and it turned out better than you hoped it would, or you drive your rod down the street, it's that endorphin buzz. It's that it's the same thing.
Absolutely.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, that's great.
Now we got to hang out with him.
I'd love to.
Well, when he hits the East Coast, we
can talk cars and old vintage gear, and
totally. That's great. All right, so you're obviously on tour. People can find that out from your website,
which we will have on our website.
Yes, we'll put it there.
Awesome.
New release. You're recording now. Any idea when something new might drop? I mean, no pressure. The last one was 2012. I mean, that's still relatively recent.
We are beyond long overdue, and No, it'll be probably within the first quarter of next year, because we know exactly what's going to be on it, and it's just a matter right now, to be honest, is trying to decide if which ones, if any, will recut in a slightly different environment, because there's a lot of because like I said, my library of recordings is pretty massive, and I'm sure that there's probably some stuff we already have recorded that just will need to be mixed.
Cool.
Nice.
So for me, it's right now I'm kind of once we get through the next couple of weeks and we slow down a little bit from how busy we've been, because we've been gone a lot. I'll be able to go through and assess it, so to speak. But that's on the agenda from now till the end of the year. So
awesome, man.
Cool. And I just want to touch base a little bit on the gear, because it is
absolutely
axes. But I mean, you mentioned the 60 burst. You mentioned the 67
335.
Well, no, the 67
Marshall.
Plexi.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, it has to be a
Correct.
Plexi if it's 67.
Exactly.
And the 335.
Yeah.
What year is that? 60 what?
It's a 62.
62?
The 335 is a 62.
62.
Nice. And I've been traveling with. I've mostly been playing the burst.
Okay.
Cool.
I mean, you played the 335 for quite a while, though, right?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and it will always be kind of my number one girl, because it's the vintage side of things has just it's just grown to kind of epic proportions in that like 4 years ago I'd never even held a real burst. I'd never and now, I mean, just the sheer number. I mean, I've gotten to play and either borrow or have extended periods of time with. I mean, it's insane.
Wow.
Blackguards, old Gibsons. I mean, pre-war Martins, old. I mean, just you name it. I mean, I've been very, very, very fortunate, and it's completely, and it's exactly like hot rod culture. The people that are vintage enthusiasts that have either been in it long enough that they started when the stuff really wasn't that expensive yet.
Right. Yeah.
Or the people that can just afford to be in that game now. It's just like a hot rods, where they all know each other and they're all really good friends. And I became friends with a few of them, and then therefore became friends with all of them. And so it's just been amazing to get to play. And like I said, have intimate time with so many great examples of so many different things. So anyway,
awesome.
In relation to, what I've been traveling with, I've got the 60 burst, which is a real one, and it's absolutely stunning. I've played a whole bunch of real ones now, and it's definitely one of the best ones I've played.
Nice.
And is absolutely incredible. And for me, the dream guitar, like y'all, like lots of people, so many of my heroes. So I've been playing that most of the time. The 335 is kind of the alternate to that. And then I've also got a black 59 Strat that I play just on a handful of songs. There's a couple of songs that it suits where I use the tremolo bar pretty aggressively. And then I've got a beautiful 52 Les Paul that actually has been converted into a burst. The whole conversion thing, which a lot of people have very passionate opinions of. But nonetheless, that's an amazingly great guitar as well. And these days, usually the last instrument that's out on the road is I've got a newer, brand new custom shop 1275 double neck that
Wow.
there's a song off the first record called Clementia's Lament that is in a very strange augmented tuning on 12 string, and then there's three other songs in our repertoire that are in somewhat similar tunings on the 12 string. So that usually comes out at least once in every show, sometimes twice. So
Nice.
Cool.
So that's the instruments, and then Yeah, no, so the purple amp is the main one, and then I've got a 6700 watt PA that is kind of the backup or the alternate.
Man,
and
that is
I've also
awesome.
got a newer Park that Mitch Colby up in New York is making now.
Good friends with Mitch. Actually, we just did a show together in Pennsylvania a little while ago, and he brought a couple of the Parks out, and they were really fun to play.
Wow.
Man, I gotta say, I mean, I've played tons and tons of stuff of that ilk, and Mitch Colby and Park, they're fantastic. I couldn't be a nicer guy, and he's really making great stuff.
Yeah, he's doing a very limited run of those Parks. And they're really nice pieces. I got a chance to play through one. Very, very nice.
It would have been funny if you would have said, "Oh, a Kramer and a Line 6."
Yeah, exactly. That's really what I'm using.
It's my mainstays on tour.
That's what I take on tour.
Yeah,
when I'm in the studio. That's exactly. Awesome that you're taking the old stuff out. That's just like the hot rod mentality. These guys build these cars and then they drive them. And I don't mean they just drive them on the weekends. Some of these guys drive these as daily drivers.
Yeah.
Wow.
And could you imagine you're at work and a guy in a 49 Merc pulls up? I mean, he'd be like, are we going out and lunching it?
I would be like, darn right, you're driving your 49 Merc. I'll meet you there in my 32 Highboy.
There you go.
Oh, man.
After we do some burnouts.
Exactly.
That's right.
I completely, I mean, obviously there's a certain level of security, obviously, that we have to that we have to keep in mind, and we're right on the verge of being jerks about it at times, but we have to.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, I mean, the whole reason, put it this way, the items that I just listed, that the ones that aren't mine, that I have in my possession, the whole reason why I have them is to use them,
Right.
And if I wasn't, then there'd be no reason for me to have it,
True.
So, and it, part of the joy is sharing it, there's some, because like I said, it hasn't been that long that I've had such amazing access to some of this stuff. So it still freaks me out. I mean, I'm not used to it. It's amazing. I love it. I think it's incredible. Yeah. It makes every day I feel like a little kid.
Yeah.
And it's fun to share it with people. It's fun to say, have a go, check it out, check this out, have fun with it, play it. That's part of the joy of it.
That's too cool, man. That is just so cool.
And one last thing is what I'm surprised, because you are such a hot rod fan, a lot of guys that are into the hot rods like that, especially the old stuff, you find that they tend to go to like rockabilly bands. Because when you go to one of these events, that's all you see is rockabilly.
Oh yeah,
bands.
And I mean, and I love that stuff. But you see, in that club band that I was in here, I played that stuff for years.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And I have a great affinity for all of that stuff, and it's a huge part of who I am.
Nice.
But yeah, cool. I mean, like I was saying, we started, the conversation. We basically started talking about Scotty Moore. So,
yeah, well, there you go.
But I love all that stuff.
That's rockabilly.
That goes right back to the root of where it started for him. So full circle.
Awesome, man. Awesome.
That is great. Well, JD, we're going to wrap here, but man, I got to thank you for taking the time, and sorry for the delay on our end.
Yeah.
Thank you. I really appreciate you guys having me. I've had such a great time. I'm sorry to.
Well, we've got to have him again.
Oh, we'll do it in person when he hits the East Coast eventually.
Yeah, we'll bring the laptop to you.
That's right. We'll come out and do it in person.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
It's a deal.
All right.
Awesome.
Man.
All right. Well, once again, thank you very much. Much continued success. You are starting to rise rapidly, and I hope we can turn a few more people onto you.
Well, thank you.
Because I just love your style. I love what you do. I love you do it old school, and I can't wait to see you in person, man. Just can't wait.
Thank you very, very much. I really appreciate you two gentlemen, and thank you for the kind words.
Oh, you are more than welcome. Thank you again. Much continued success to you, my friend.
Thank you. You as well.
Thank you.
God bless.
You too.
All right. Bye.
Bye. All right. So, as promised and as delivered, one JD Simo.
What a home run.
Totally love that guy, man. He's a younger guy, but he's so old school, and that's what really turned me on to him.
Yeah.
He loves the old stuff. He plays the old stuff, but not only that, he musically he goes back for the roots too. You know, and he got turned on by some really cool roots. And
that's wild stuff. You usually hear it's like some really heavily guitar oriented thing. Granted, Elvis, like he said, there was some really great guitar players in there.
Right. And everybody loved Elvis strumming the guitar, even though if it wasn't the main part of the music that you were hearing, he just still looked cool singing and strumming the guitar, So that's neat, man. And I tell you, like we've talked, this whole thing has kind of gotten out of hand with the new stuff and how things are recorded and how it's so polished and how it's just perfected to no end. And now you start to see this resurgence of vinyl. It's finally starting to make sense that people are kind of getting tired. Once again, we've taken it so far digitally that we can hear now that it's not even real anymore. Right.
And people are like, I've had enough of the Skrillex.
Right. There's something not quite right about this.
And I want to hear Led Zeppelin on vinyl, or something like that. So it's pretty cool to hear
I don't
him.
want it to be perfect. I want it to be the way it was when it was done.
And you know what? I like his take with the whole recording aspect, that you don't have to go to tape because it is very expensive.
Absolutely.
But when you record, think that you're on tape.
Right. You have to have the right mindset. If you go in, I'm just going to cut it 2 or 3 times and we'll patch it all together and we'll make it absolutely perfect, and we can do all that in Pro Tools.
Yeah.
And I never have to cut a perfect performance, and nothing about it has to be perfect, and I'm just going to go in and basically phone it in.
Auto-tune and Pro Tools, and we'll cut it up and
just
make it
because
work.
You can doesn't mean you should.
Exactly.
Honestly, in my mind, just because you can, it just means you shouldn't.
Yes.
It just go in with the right mindset, do it the right way, and this guy is really, it's very, very cool, because I can see if he was an old guy, like me, and going at this show, I want to do it the old way, I want to play my 100-watt Marshall, and I want to put it on 2-inch, and I want to get it right, and if it takes 8 takes, and I could see some engineer going, oh, it's just an old guy whining, but
a fresh 20-some-year-old or 30-some-year-old
trying to do it the right way.
Yeah.
Again, God bless, man. I mean, he is hopefully going to be the new king of tone.
Yeah, think about this too. Is music. Now they're doing it, but years ago, like he said, you could not do it, right? Like when they did Brick House, you hear those guys. Those guys are playing trumpets. We all know that. They're in there. There's a huge band there, right? You couldn't fake it. There was nothing to fake it with. You had to have a sax player or a trombone player or a trumpet player. You had to have those pieces. They didn't. Nothing electronically could mimic that sound.
Right.
And you had to know your craft. But oddly enough, music has now made it to where, well, you don't really have to be that good because we can fix a lot of things. And but that's kind of weird, because if you go and watch like a sports thing, they don't let the quarterback throw 5 perfect passes. He has to throw 5 perfect passes or the other team intercepts.
Right.
I mean, when you look at other things that we
just
do,
throw 5, we'll pick the best one.
Exactly. I mean, it's kind of like,
no, it's more like just throw 5. We'll piece together those 5 so that it looks like the absolutely perfect pass.
For the highlight, we'll make it look good instead of It's really strange how music has taken this turn to where now it's like, don't worry, we can
fix it in the mix.
Oh, you can't play that guitar part that fast? We'll speed it up, and we'll bring the pitch back down to where it's normal. Nobody will know.
Yeah, except when you try to do it live.
Well, don't worry, the tape will be rolling.
Oh, well, that's true. That's true. Performance isn't even live anymore.
Yeah, so this is where this is what we talk about.
Well, yeah, and hopefully people like JD are turning it around, and more people will take notice and go, wow, if he can do it, I guess we can do it that way. Let's try to do it that way. It sounds like it'd be really cool if we could do that.
Opportunities
it's out
may
there,
look like work. That's why they're called opportunities.
That's right. Well,
so if you have the chance, do it, and do it that way, and you'll be happier.
Well, hopefully he's going to wind up being the heir to the tone throne, and people are going to go, wow, How do they do that? Sounds really great. How do they do that? Okay, we're going to do it that way.
It's going to be work, but
it's going to be work. But you know what?
You do it, and
if it ain't work, it ain't worth it.
That's right.
That's right. Don't try to cheap out on it. So we're done working for the day.
Yes. So until next time, my friend, I am Mick Marcelino.
Damn right, because I still want to be Jeff Bober.
And we are saying
onward.
Be sure to follow the show on Twitter @AmsandAxes. Also, make sure you like the show on Facebook. For news, comments, and Lick of the Week with Dave Nassie, visit our website, amsandaxescast.com. Thanks for listening.